What's next for the New York City Football Club and Pelé in North America? That's next on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy.
Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And for the first time since 2015, New York City will not have an opportunity to win an MLS Cup. I'm Glenn Crooks, Roberto Abramowitz. Hi, Roberto. We are your radio commentators in English and Spanish for the club, and certainly a disappointing ending, not at Citi Field, where New York City got the 1-0 win over the Chicago Fire, but it was that 3-game parlay. Roberto, I know you know about parlays, Mr. NFL. You know,
I don't do betting. That's not my thing.
You have never done
not
an
my
NFL
thing.
parlay. I don't believe you.
No, I don't have an app. The last time I think.
Like when you were in college. Like when you were in college, didn't you get those sheets and play them? Really? No. Wow. That's wild.
Meanwhile, my cat is destroying a bag over here.
Well,
that I have a little something that we got yesterday, you and I. But anyway, that's beside the point. No, but I never did it. Never really did anything like that. The only thing I'm doing right now is in Mexico during the soccer season. The company that I work for has an agreement with a betting company. And so Eric Gomez and myself, we sort of pick a lineup so people can use it as a guide to form their own lineups for that weekend, and hopefully they can win some cash.
All right, so you're offering betting advice, is what you're saying. You're not doing the betting yourself.
Very poor betting advice, most likely. I'm the type of guy who you follow to see. All right, he picked this guy, and do everything backwards. Do the contrary.
So you're no Jimmy. You're no Jimmy the Greek. Is that what you're telling me? All right, so
I'm still alive.
Yes. Well, the parlay I'm referring to, of course, is New York City needed to beat Chicago, and then Nashville needed to, at home, beat the Red Bulls, which they couldn't do. And then we needed Inter Miami to just get a result at Charlotte, which they couldn't do, even though Lionel Messi did score a goal, but he was offside.
Really? Oh.
It was called back.
Like, wait a second. They lost 1-0. How did they score a goal? Oh.
He scored a goal that was called back.
Okay. So, and Messi, by the way, playing 90 minutes on turf when everybody naysayed, Messi only said that, and he only said it for publicity that he was going to play on turf, and he was lying. They always believe all these guys lie all the time, and it's just so crazy. Anyway, he played 90 minutes on turf, came out fine.
I was thinking about that because we're going to, in the Kicking It Around segment, we're going to talk about Pelé and where we were yesterday down in Times Square, but Pelé played on the worst artificial surface in the history of sports at Giant Stadium.
Not really. No, I'll disagree with that. I'm not saying that you're wrong that it was poor. It was poor, but all artificial surfaces at that time were poor. Now, I got a chance to travel with the Cosmos back in the day, and I got to visit other stadiums. The stadium in Philadelphia, oh my God, that was worse. The one in Toronto.
Where did they play in Philly?
They played at the Vet. They played at the Vet. Okay. They played at the Vet where I forget the name of the player. There's an NFL player that on one play, it was a wide receiver that on one play tore both his ACLs on one play at the Vet.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. That's how poor that surface was. And the one in Toronto was even worse. The one on Toronto it seemed to be like a thin layer of AstroTurf, which was just like all cheap plastic laid over cement. All right. Well, it was brutal.
That's what Giant Stadium.
The Giant Stadium turf, just to say, I don't want to say that you were wrong per se. I know the point you're trying to make. Yes, it was bad, but they were all bad at the time.
Yeah, all right. I just can't believe what I always thought yeah, and soccer players, man, when they a slide tackle, that we would see the big raspberry in the locker room afterwards. But how American football players play on that. It was, when you get tackled on that thing, it's literally, it's like concrete. You and I were both on the field at various times over the course of that. And I don't know if you played, did we determine whether I played in a couple of press games? I don't know if
I did.
Yeah. So we probably, we didn't know each other then.
No, we didn't know each other then, but we did. Not only that, I've got a little story for you. So there was one game where Toronto was playing New York City. New York City was playing the Cosmos, and they had 28 to 30,000 at Giants Stadium for that. And at halftime, they had a shootout. Okay, between the New York City press and the New Jersey press. Okay, I saw that. I don't know what you did. I just remember Ike Coons and the Big E trying to score goals. They were both there. And who was the goalie? Do you remember who the goalie was?
No. Shep Messing?
Oh, come on. You got to remember this. The goalie in the shootout.
I don't remember. All I remember is the Big E, the guy who worked for the AP, just huge guy, and Ike Coons, not quite as huge, but neither one of them nimble as they approached the goal.
No, and they both missed. No, the goalie was Bugs Bunny.
I forgot that.
The goalie was Bugs Bunny. Anyway, I put New York ahead 1-0, going carrot side on Bugs and beating them. Nice. And then Jack Bell tied it for New Jersey, and we wound up 1-1. We were the only ones who scored out of 10 attempts.
Yeah, that sounds like the New York, New Jersey press.
It was great.
There weren't too many.
I didn't want the embarrassment of missing against Bugs Bunny in front of 28,000 strong. And so I was able to beat Bugs. As I said, I saw he had a little bit of a weakness carrot side, and that's where I went because he was carrying a big carrot.
Well,
Can you imagine everybody else missing?
We're going to...
I mean, it wasn't no mean feat that I made it. I mean, to me, it was, damn, I better not miss this. Okay, but everybody else, aside from Jack Bell and I, missed.
All right. And, yeah, so we'll get more into the Cosmos and Pelé in a little bit from what we saw yesterday, and it was a fun day for us. But back to New York City, I thought Hudson River Blue put out a pretty good, and I wonder if I have it handy. They put out a pretty good story today. Oliver Strand writing it, and I assume compiling the information. New York City was in the top 9. He lists 9 teams conceding the fewest goals in MLS this year, Roberto, which, I think along the way we understood that they weren't conceding a lot of goals. But the only one of the 9 teams in this top 9 that's not in the postseason. And then you go to why? Well, only 35 goals scored, which is the lowest. And I didn't know this. I didn't look this up as thoroughly. Maybe you did. But it's the fewest goals scored in a single season, including the pandemic year when they only played 20 games. So
I didn't know it, but it makes sense because what have we been complaining about all year long? The fact that they can't score goals, and that their margins were razor thin, and defensively every mistake that they made is compounded by the fact that they're not scoring goals. Trust me, if they're giving up as many set pieces as they gave up during the season, but the team is averaging over 2 goals a game, we're not bitching about this as loudly as we did. But every goal was magnified because of the significance of the fact that the team was having trouble scoring all year long.
An example to me, look, and if anyone that is part of the club is watching this, they're probably going to consider this an unfair statement. But I thought an example was Santi Rodriguez not finishing that ball in front of the goal as he was crashing the back post. And he didn't lay out, to me, Matty pointed it out first, and I had to agree, Matty Lawrence, my broadcast partner, that he just didn't want to, he feared the back post. He feared crashing into the post rather than sacrificing and scoring the goal. And it happened not with Santi, but a couple of other times. I recall that he's Andres Jason, who's a favorite of ours and has certainly developed this year, perhaps more than any other player within the club. But he bailed out on one that probably should have been a goal earlier in the year. And again, it's just the pictures tell the story. I mean, you see it and you have to tell it like it is. And it's those little things. I mean, how many goals would have had to score along the way here, Roberto, to change the entire course of the season? And you got little moments like that I think that really resonates.
By the way, one. The answer to that is one.
Well, what one?
And I'll tell you, any one of 4 games that they allowed themselves to be tied in stoppage time. Any one. Because 2 points would have given them a tie with Charlotte, and New York City would have advanced on the second tiebreaker by a goal.
Well,
the second tiebreaker being goal difference.
That's the stuff that it's going to be difficult to sleep at night if I'm part of the technical staff or the players who just missed. And Monsef Bakrar, the striker who came in, granted, when guys come in the summer in this league, very few of them just walk in and start producing. I mean, that's the history of summer transfers in MLS is they don't do that, and they need a little bit more time. And I think the study of Bakrar has to continue after preseason and into the beginning of next year to see how it all goes. But his goal scoring rate, Roberto, 3 goals in 10 or 11 games, is pretty much the rhythm of what he had coming in with his previous clubs. Meaning,
a little bit better. A little bit better because he had 8 out of 38 in his last year in Croatia, right? 8 goals in 38. He scored 3 goals in MLS. He scored 1 goal against Toronto in Leagues Cup. So he had 4 goals in almost 10 games? Or in 10 games?
No, more than that. I'm going just regular year. He had 3 goals in what I think was 11 regular games, maybe 10. And what I'm saying is that he was not the prolific guy up top that you need. And you talk to, all these conversations go on throughout the year, not just with New York City FC, but I know you're adamant about this, is that, you need a pretty productive striker in order to win MLS Cup. I mean, it just doesn't happen otherwise. And the proof is Tati Castellanos for New York City FC. And who will it be this year? And that's, is LAFC going to win because they had the Golden Boot winner? That remains to be seen.
Yeah. It's.
I mean, you can't.
Your leading goal scorer teaches us. Yeah,
your leading goal scorer can't be playing. Your leading goal scorer can't be playing in Qatar, and for you to advance.
Those are circumstances that you're going to have in this league. Look, there's certain things that we have to accept that are going to happen in this league, okay? And this happens in pretty much every league in the world, with the exception of 4 or 5, and not even every team, okay? Top teams in those 4 or 5 leagues. Everybody else is selling. Those guys buy, and when they sell, it's because they don't need the guy anymore. Everybody else sells to make money. Okay, that's the way it is. That's life in soccer. You're going to be a fan. It doesn't matter if you're a fan of NYC, the LA Galaxy, LAFC, America, River, Boca, Santos, whatever. Teams in Europe, Galatasaray, Ajax, PSV, they're all sellers. That's what the soccer economy dictates. There are a certain amount of teams that have unlimited money. You see what Chelsea spends and doesn't spend wisely. Manchester City spends a ton. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, Bayern Munich, not even BVB, okay? Not even Borussia Dortmund. They're a selling club. And they were a game away from winning the championship last year, okay? So all these teams are sellers. All right. And so This is what's going to happen. So if the Gabi Pereiras of the world are going to get an offer where they're going to pay them 6 times their salary, and New York City is going to be able to double or triple the money that they paid for him, and they're coming for him in June or July, you got to say goodbye.
I'm not suggesting that was a bad move by the club, because it's obviously a profitable move by the club. It was initiated by Gabi Pereira himself. It was not initiated by the club. But they
wanted to keep him.
They obviously made some good cash from it. I'm just saying his 6 goals. What was his last game? It was late June, I think. The last game he scored in was June 21st. That was his 6th goal, and he, so he's gone the rest of the season, and he remains the leading goal scorer for New York City this year. That was my point, is that you can't advance without someone who's going to put it in the back of the net.
Right. I mean, it wasn't like he was having some incredible season that he was close to leading the league or his top 10 or anything like that.
Right.
He had a moderate amount of success scoring goals, and yet still New York City couldn't find one person to be able to pick up that mantle. It was more scoring by committee, and it was a small committee.
Yeah. So really the first question that has to be posed is the future of Nick Cushing. And that's got to be addressed. I'm sure there's probably, as we speak, there's evaluations ahead, or maybe the evaluation is complete and we're going to hear something soon. Did have a long chat with Nick. Well, I had a long chat with Nick along with Maddie. We just happened to be on the field, and he walked up in probably 15 or 20 minutes, just talking about a lot of different things. But I wondered if there had been any communication about his future. I basically said, what if it doesn't go well today? And he really hasn't heard anything one way or the other. My thoughts, I have thoughts on 2 sides of this. I think that I like the way he goes about things. I like his relationship with the players. You can see them interacting. We get a chance to see at least a little bit, and we get to see things on the road. So I think it gives you a good idea about his relationship with players. Players that aren't playing, they're never particularly happy, but how a coach handles that. And I think just watching him interact with Andres Jason earlier in the year when Jason wasn't playing, and just things like that, it seemed like he knows how to handle that sort of thing. He's managed teams for a long time. You could say, well, he's only managed the women's game at Manchester City. Well, that's a pretty pressure-packed arena to coach in. Won an FA Cup, won league titles. So I do believe he knows how to coach a team and win. My only thing, and players got a couple of players I thought got better under his guidance. Kevin O'Toole, for sure. Andres Jason. The only thing that really sticks with me is I didn't think Tyler Magno, for instance, even Santi Rodriguez, how Richie Ledesma came in and really did not perform to the level I think that they expected, or probably he expected. So why did these guys not develop better individually to complete the team task? Now you can say, well, Santi had 5 goals, 7. I don't care about his stats. I'm saying I didn't see him become that much better of a player this year, if at all, maybe even dropped off a little bit. Is it because of the people around him? He didn't have Maxi there. I mean, there's a lot of points to this equation, but I'm just wondering why some of the individuals didn't get better during the course of the year. And that's my honest assessment. Is that a coach's responsibility? Partially. Is it Nick Cushing's responsibility? If he's not instructing them, he's assigning assistants to instruct them. So it would have been nice to see more of the individuals develop during the course of the year. That's my.
All right. So my take on this is, and going off yours, I agree with that part of the assessment. I'll disagree a little bit on Santi. I think Santi did play better this year than he played in years past. I just didn't think he had enough around him to be able to show that, right? So when you're putting balls in the box and nobody's putting him in, how do you blame him? So I thought that he played better. I didn't think that he played tremendously better, but I think he did play better this year than he did last year. I just don't think, again, that he was surrounded with enough talent to be able to make a difference. So much of this falls on the responsibility of probably not having a center forward, trying to do what they did with Tati with Tylus, and it didn't work out. It doesn't always work out. Just because it worked once, it doesn't mean that it's going to work out every single time. Different mentalities, especially Tylus and Tati, they're probably quite a bit apart as far as how they approach everything. So I think Tylus actually has probably more individual talent and skill than Tati does, but Tati developed himself by sheer will, into a very good finisher and to being in a good position in the box. And we saw how he developed that, right? Because at the beginning, when they put him as center forward, he wasn't a great finisher. And we had long conversations over this, how he wasn't never going to be developed into a great finisher, etc. And at the end of the day, he developed into a very good finisher to the point of where he went to Girona and now he's in Lazio. And, hopefully he gets a chance to really prove what he can do there. He's sitting behind some pretty good people right now in Lazio. So those things can be learned, especially with somebody who has the work rate and the mentality that Tati Castellanos has, which not everybody in the world has. Going back to this team, how you would, yes.
Well, I wanted to add one more player. I don't think I mentioned Brian Coufret is the other guy that I think it was perplexing that, he was brought in to be the guy. There was an obvious discontent, I think, with the way he defended, or organized himself in that manner. But that's part of development too. So he's another puzzle for me. I'm
New
pretty
York
puzzled.
City's now.
Pardon?
How many years has it been that they've had problems defending down that side? That they've been trying to fix that? Remember last year, it was always all those runs to the end line and cut back to the penalty spot and somebody trailing and coming in and scoring and all those issues. And then this year, it was defending again. Yeah, they've had some issues over there. And especially when you don't have somebody like Alex Collins to cover up the deficiencies that somebody on the left side would have.
Yeah. I think now on the other side, the insertion and addition and bringing in Burke Reese, I think was, and I will readily admit when I just saw tape on him, I was like, what is the big deal here? But he was very good, and his biggest thing is to work on his 1v1 defending as time goes on. Look, I think this staff is a staff that my observation is they're about development in addition to winning games. I see Mehdi Boulucci,
absolutely.
Daniel Fradley, all these guys, Rob Vertuggen, and Matt Freese got better during the course of the year. He's the obvious number one, unless something changes in terms of bringing in another keeper. He'll be the obvious number one going into 2024. So for me, these guys are about development in addition to the winning. But I just didn't see these certain players that I mentioned. I don't know why they didn't get better, and why they dropped off. Or why they dropped off so much.
I would think that a lot of them, goes to them, goes to the players individually of why they didn't get better. But Glenn, this is a really important part about this team. I'm not going to say it's the most important, but it's top three because they're probably the most money that they're going to make is going to be on developing and selling players for a profit. And so when you're developing academy players, right, coming up, the Joe Scallies of the world, and then you wind up selling them to Europe or bringing in players from Latin America or from Europe or from wherever, of Asia, if it happens, right? And you're going to bring them in and you're going to develop it and sell them to Europe like they did with Tati Castellanos, then this is where you're going to make a boatload of money. Right. And this is a business. At the end of the day, it's a business. The biggest profit center that this team is going to have is going to be existing just by the fact that they exist and valuations of MLS teams go through the roof. Right. What was paid and what the team is worth now. That's going to be always. That doesn't bring in the money now. But if they ever decide to sell the team, let's say, they're going to make a boatload of cash. So it's a profit center. Selling players is a profit center. But let's get back to the main point on Nick. Okay. And to me, Nick Cushing didn't stop being a good coach after he got the team to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Let's remember that it was in mid-July, early July, that Ronnie Dyla and Efrain Juarez left, and they said, here's the team. And he took that team, who then lost Tati Castellanos, the leading scorer in the league, okay? And he took them to the Eastern Conference Finals. And he had them ahead 1-0 in that game in the second half. And then the team made a mistake by the guy who you would never expect to make a mistake. And it's Alexander Callens, who turned off for a second on a free kick, and he got burnt, and that was a tying goal, and that just changed the entire game.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh,
and if that doesn't happen, maybe they're in the final. Who knows what the hell happens in the final?
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
You can never know. Okay? So he didn't stop being a good coach. What changed with the team was that they decided to redo. And so many of the veterans left. Collins left. Sean Johnson left. Maxi Morales left. Who else am I missing? Anton Tinnerholm left.
Yeah, Tinnerholm's the big one too. But
all these guys left. And so there was a void of leadership, although you have Thiago Martins and Maxime Chanot stepping into that void, right? And then Maxi Morales coming back late in the season. They did bring in, some young players who had talent by bringing in Richie Ledesma, by bringing back Santi Rodriguez. I thought those were key. But remember, they're going into the season, or even weeks before the season, everybody is like, where are the players? Who's coming in, right? And so they did do that. And then in midseason, they brought in 6 new faces. Sadly for New York City, Maxi got hurt, and I don't know what changes if he was able to stay healthy, right? And that doesn't mean that there weren't situations during games or preparations of games that you could say, Jesus, I wish the team had played better. The result at DC is terrible, losing at Houston. Although at the end of the day, now you look at Houston and they're in 4th place in the West, and they turned out to be a pretty good team. There's a lot of points that they left all along the way that you could say, gee, if they had just done this or done that or done this, and there were moments. But in my assessment, I think Nick Cushing is a good coach. I think that the most important thing, he's got the locker room's attention and respect, and I think he just needs better material to be able to for this team to take it again to the next level. I mean, I think that he's not the problem. I think the team has to stay, and as we saw with this new salary release, New York City is, a mid-table team as far as money spending. Now, I'm not saying that spending money resolves everything. We have Toronto as an absolute prime example that you don't throw money at a problem and expect it to be solved. We get that, and for the most part, New York City has spent money very, very wisely, among the wisest around. And that's great. And they need to continue to do that, but maybe elevate a little bit more on how much they're spending to be able to address some of the problems that the team has.
Well, the most money is dictated towards Tylus Magno and Thiago Martins. It's pretty rare that a center back in MLS makes over $2 million and is a designated player. I think Thiago Martins is a very good central defender, but you wonder about that. You wonder about Magno, if he can recover and show some of the things that made him special when he scores a game-winning goal in the Eastern Conference Final at Philadelphia. I mean, those are moments where you can look back and go like, yeah, this guy can get it done in the big moments. So, well, I'm with you 100%. There's going to be people watching this who have the hashtag Cushing out, all over the place on their social accounts, but I'm not in agreement with that. And what's interesting is Nick, I don't know if you were aware of this. I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but later found out that he knew that he was getting the permanent position before the Montreal playoff game last year. So I just wonder if there's been anything similar to that, even though it's not a similar situation. You're not getting into the playoffs, but if there have been some discussions just to, alleviate some of those concerns with him. But
I mean, I really think that New York City has a great front office as far as these things are concerned, and they're going to address all of this, and hopefully they're giving all the necessary tools and finances to be able to compete at a high level and try to go and win championships. Right.
when we,
and
yeah.
I hope that is the situation, because if they're given everything that they need, I think that they'll be able to do that, because they've proven that they've done it. And I think, based on the conversations we've had, there's no reason to think that they can't do this again.
Well, when we're next week, maybe we'll have more information on options declined and that sort of thing. There's some dates coming up, which we'll talk about more in the next episode. One thing I did find out, and it was just this guy Mike who works at Citi Field. He comes in and helps me set up for the Apple broadcast for the English hometown commentary, and then we were talking about. He goes, well, this is the last game here this year, and I thought, well, I mean, if they get to the playoffs and win the wild card game, then there's that best 2 or 3. And he goes, oh no, that would be played at Yankee Stadium. And the reason why is
you got so excited. I know you got excited by this. And you're going to go and try to do this. I know it.
Stadium links at Citi Field. Check this out, man. So they set up the golf, and this is why a playoff game wasn't going to be able to be held at Citi Field. It had to be at Yankee Stadium. Check this out. They set up all these little tee box areas all around the stadium, and then they set up the greens with the pins. And from what I could read, it cost $100, and you only get like 20 shots. So you better be on that day.
That's it.
And but there's prizes and things. So I don't know the whole thing. I'm not going to be able to play. It's sold out. I can't get in. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to talk my way into it. But I'll just have to look at it earlier.
Steve Cohen is a billionaire. $100 for 20 shots.
That's what I've heard. I don't know that for a fact. That's what I heard.
Oh, I was like, you know what? Go to Top Golf in Edison and whack some balls over there.
Yeah,
I actually like that place. I need to go do the go-kart that they built right next to it. That looks sick. Speaking of sick, that really does. I'm like, I've got to go and do that.
Well, apparently they do this stadium links in other venues around the baseball stadiums.
They've done it at Citi Field before. This is
the
first year.
I just, I missed it. This is the first time I've seen it.
How did you not know this?
Look at, man,
You're
I don't.
Golf enthusiast. You take your clubs to play around before we take off to go on the road. The first phone call you make in every city we land is like, oh, can I go play golf in the morning? Where can I go play golf? And you're like, poor you Uber driver that you're nagging. Where can I go play golf over here? And you don't know about the city links.
All right. I don't. But I do know that the University of Georgia is asking me for money because the Dogs are playing the Florida Gators this weekend. I just got this text. Make a gift today and help us win. Well, listen, man. But do you know about this Georgia-Florida football game every year? They call it the largest outdoor cocktail party because what they do is they go to Jacksonville. They play at a neutral site in Jacksonville, Florida, and they basically shut down the town. I think the people that live there don't like it very much, but I went twice as a student, and it's about as nutty as it gets. I'll just leave it at that. But the largest.
I wonder. Well, they're going to have to. They're going to be rebuilding that stadium in Jacksonville, and it's going to take them over a year. So Khan, the owner, is going to put I don't know how many millions, and the city is going to put in I don't know how many millions, and they're going to go and rebuild the stadium. Which reminds me, so we have new information thanks to Chris Campbell and the outfield about New York City FC's stadium that we hope gets built at Willets Point and inaugurated in 2027. We got some new information about this, Glenn, during the week, and it looks
the fabled ULERP, the fabled ULERP, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And that's what it is. And ULERP, let me see, which is the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure. Okay, so that's what that is. So they're going to make a presentation, and with that, and then it's supposed to advance out of there. So as far as the timeline is concerned, now it's not, nothing's guaranteed, right? But let me see what he had as a timeline. So they had the timeline that all of this was going to get done by the beginning of 2024. And if it all gets approved, then in March of 2024, they start digging and they're doing the deep foundation and the excavation. By September of 2024, they start on the foundations. And then the superstructure starts being built in 2025 in January. And then in June of 2025, as my cats decide to fight here in front of me, thank you.
This thing's gonna get completed by
I'm
26.
literally having a cat fight here. I don't know, something just knocked down.
This thing is going to get built by 26 in your timeline. I'm listening, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. I literally had a cat fight. My cats always decide to sleep right behind my computer while I'm doing this. And they just decided to argue on who gets the right side and who gets the cold pillow. So anyway, they've left. Anyway, coming back to this. So in June of 2025, they continue the superstructure and the building envelope and the architectural finishes. And December of 2025 to December of 2026, the architectural finishes. Stadium would open in 2027, and then they would finish like all, a couple of minor things here and there by August of 2027. So that's the way it is. It's not going to be like the Miami Stadium, Drive Pink Stadium, which they basically put together like an erector set, and they built it in under 9 months. This is a different ballgame.
That doesn't even weigh in because they're looking for Freedom Park, which there's no shovels dug there yet or in the ground or whatever they say. Dan Cordemanche, as you know, who's the chief communications officer for MLS. He's been there from the first kick at MLS. And by the way, he's a University of Georgia graduate. We have this big commonality. We're both Bulldogs. But anyway, he was, I said, you guys happy that there's a soccer stadium now for New York City? And he smiled and he just said this ULERP thing was very big because you're now going to see the shovels in the ground that everybody talks about. So that's going to happen. And that's a good outline.
I mean, there's a lot. There's hurdles still to go through, right? This isn't, a done deal or a slam dunk, although everybody feels very confident it's going to happen. Look, there are politics that are involved with all of this. And so the two major things, one of them wasn't really major, but it became a major point when the Queensboro president, Donovan Richards, had a beef with Mayor Adams about the fact that the police had kicked out street vendors from Corona Plaza. And so Donovan Richards had basically said, look, I support the stadium, but I am not going to give it my approval until Mayor Adams allows for the street vendors to come back. And so now that seems to be resolved. But then there's a second thing that we have to be aware of, and that is that there's somebody, I got to remember the name here, wants a police station built into the area at Willets Point, that they want a new police precinct there. And that is one of the things that is going to be really key if they get that approval or not for the new police precinct, because that is a sticking point right now in all of this. So if they get the police precinct, then that is going to alleviate a lot of the issues that are not holding it up, mind you. There's nothing holding it up right now, but might be a potential holdup.
Well, that's a good outline of things, Roberto. Very good. And we did communicate with Chris Campbell prior to the recording of this episode. So Chris is going to hop on with us next week to there's been no one. He's basically, I would say, the hero of the New York City supporters. He's the rock star because he's been the one that's from start to finish, really, from the initial meetings to discuss this, from whether it was going to be in the Bronx or East River, wherever it was going to be. Chris has been on top of it. So he's going to join us next week, Roberto. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, there's one thing that's very important, and we'll get to this before it happens, which is December 11th. So there's going to be there's probably going to be meetings and things before December 11th. But on December 11th is where the Housing and Land Use Committee meeting, and they're going to cast their vote in the general board meeting on December 11th. And so what New York City is asking, and this makes a lot of sense. Hey, all of you who are New York City FC fans and people who may not, but still want to see this project go through because of all the other things that are going to be part of it, which is going to be 2,500 units of housing. There's going to be a school. There's going to be a library. There's going to be a hotel, and the fact that they're going to make this freaking eyesore of an area into something that is going to be a must-see in New York City. That you go and support this. So if you come out and show your support, and for New York City fans, look, this is a playoff game. And this might be the biggest playoff game right now for New York City. Maybe they didn't make the playoffs, but this is your playoff game. And you've got to go and support this effort and show that you want it, because that's really going to help people make up their minds on which way they vote. If they see that nobody's coming to support this, right, and they listen to the naysayers that soccer's never going to make it, and that all these people who are anti-soccer, which still exist, right, or for their own reasons want something else, if they don't see massive support, then it may not sway their vote. So I would think that it's very, very important for New York City fans to show up in a very positive manner. You've got to show up in a positive manner and show this is going to be something that is uplifting for the community, something that is good for the community, and that the community needs to welcome into that area.
All right. Well, we'll reiterate that next week with Chris, I'm sure, when he comes on to join us here on NYCFC Views. All right. Time to kick it around, Roberto. Look at this. Now this is a wonderful book, and look, and there's Pelé Soccer's where Roberto and I.
By the way, go to this store. It's very cool. It's in Times Square.
It's a very cool store.
Yeah, and then you can go see like the naked cowboy, like I did.
I love the fact that you go to the back of the room and you could sit and they always have a game on. Yesterday they had Spurs on. They got a victory, I think. Yeah, they got the.
Yes, they did. So nothing over Fulham.
So George Tiedemann is the photographer. So all the pictures, and it's really a pictorial. But then Charles Catone, who was the communications director for the Cosmos way back when, he has provided the words surrounding the pictures, and no better person to do that than Charles. Yeah. So
God, I'm bad at this. All right, there we go.
Really cool. And then
it's a really cool book.
Yeah. So it's $29.95. Buy it. It's worth it, especially if you're from that era.
We did not get these as freebies.
No, we didn't. Actually, we were offered freebies, and we both, you got to support your friends, man. You got to buy their books. Somebody got a book, you got to buy their books. But
it's really cool.
One former Cosmo was there, Werner Roth, which was pretty cool. I met him for the first time. Roberto, you've previously known him because you covered the team back then. And so he was in town. I don't know if I told you this, Roberto. Well, there's George and then Charles Catone. And Charles has been involved in the soccer end of things for a long time. And George, keep this. Is this rolling? Can we keep that? Can we go back to that other photo?
There.
Can you freeze on that second photo, please? Not this one, the next one. If it will freeze, I don't know if you can freeze it on there. So George told a story about this, and I thought it was really fascinating, Roberto, when he said a majority of the photos in this book have never been seen before. He had like this entire arsenal of stuff that was still just put away, including this shot. And what he told me is that, and he said it to us when he was speaking to the crowd, that this was very spiritual to him because he was looking up to the skies. The only other shots, and I have to just believe him, there's other shots that are very similar to this that he took. This is Pelé's last game, and he's being carried around the field. Is he's looking forward or he's looking down at his teammates, but not up to the sky. So he's never released this photo of Pelé in his last game at Giant Stadium and for the Cosmos and as a professional soccer player. So it really is wonderful. And for us too, just because we went to so many of the games, you and I, you covered it while I was still a college kid going to the games. And then I came in and joined you in the locker room to check out which superstar was going to be there. Was it going to be Mick Jagger or Robert Plant or, who?
It was amazing. It was really amazing. It was an amazing time to cover the team too. So I was very, very fortunate that between 1977, which was the year that they moved to Giant Stadium, up until their last season where they folded, I covered the team and traveled with the team. And it was just such an amazing experience to be around that team, those players. They were rock stars. I mean, they were absolute rock stars. And for a lot of you, who weren't around at that time, when I say that they were rock stars, the Cosmos got the type of coverage that the Yankees, the Giants, and the Jets get, okay? Yeah, and the Mets. I mean, it was that level. There were back pages. They had reporters travel, not only covering games, which we don't see with New York City, sadly, except on a rare occasion. They had reporters that traveled with the team and covered the team for all away games as well.
Amazing.
And boy, did we have fun on the road. It was really a great time. It was an absolute.
And I'm sure you especially, and those that followed it that closely or followed the team and traveled with the team, immediately when Messi was signed by Miami, you start with the parallels. And it could actually, maybe we skip Beckham. So it could be Pelé, it could be Beckham, and then it could be Messi. I don't know if if you're an MLS guy, that might be the way you go with this. But those are like.
And I'll tell you no.
But those are the seminal. I'm going to say those are the seminal moments in soccer in our country, because Beckham was treated like a celebrity here in the United States of America.
Well, there's a difference. Okay, so Beckham, as great as he is, or great as he was, and I'm never going to say anything bad about him because there's nothing bad to be said. He's just not at the level of Pelé and Messi. Okay, we're talking about the two greatest players of all time.
I'm not talking about at their level.
Beckham Roberto, is not one of the greatest.
No, I'm not.
He's not in that conversation.
What I'm saying. I'm not talking.
But I am. Let me just say.
Let me interrupt. That we're having a conversation. Before you continue, I want you to know it's not about the level of player. It's the impact on the game in the United States of America. Go.
And yes, he had a great impact, and it's a turning point for soccer here. Even with his great celebrity that extends beyond the soccer field, it's not the same impact as Pelé and Messi. It's just not. Okay? Because yes, you went to see him.
I'm saying it's in stages. I'm not saying it's the same or anything. I'm saying I'm looking at the chronology of it, Roberto. So Pelé, absolutely, and then there's that long stretch, and maybe the World Cup should be in there. 94 World Cup should be in there before an individual like Beckham. I don't know, but Beckham falls in there because of it's a transformational moment for the game.
I'm not saying no. What I'm just trying to say is that although it's a tremendous impact for the league, and it made the league take off in so many different ways, Pelé and Messi, just different impacts and different quality players as far as that's concerned, and what their impact eventually is going to be, because we're going to get Messi here for another 2 years. Pelé came in 75, but his last year was 77. But then after Pelé came, right, the Cosmos brought in Quinaglia, and they had brought him in before 77. But then Beckenbauer, Neeskens, Carlos Alberto, and you can start rolling off all these fantastic names. When Beckenbauer came to the Cosmos, he had just been named Footballer of the Year in Europe. So he came in his prime. He didn't come, at the end of his career. Okay. He came in his prime, and he was, the team that the Cosmos put together, they were the first Galácticos before Real Madrid tried to co-opt that name. It was really the Cosmos, and they traveled in preseason, and wherever they went, be it Asia or be it Latin America, be it Europe, wherever they went, they sold out. And it was insanity because it wasn't just one great player that they had. They had a whole bunch of great players at the same time. It was an amazing moment to be covering soccer in this country or being a fan.
That was the other parallel, I thought, when I heard that Miami's going to Asia to play some exhibition games. It's the same sort of thing, I would think.
And they're going to get a ton of money for it.
Yeah, a lot of money for it. And just about Beckham, I finished the Beckham documentary, and if you haven't gotten through it yet, Roberto, you need to. It really is. It's quite a story, and it's a bit soapy because it's about their relationship, him and Victoria. But that's to, like, I've heard a couple of people say, yeah, my wife really enjoyed it. Not so much for the soccer, but just to track their relationship. So there's some of that too. But
I'm a huge Beckham fan. We said it on the last podcast when we talked about it. I'm a huge Beckham fan. Don't get me wrong.
I'm not saying you aren't. When did I say that? Beckham, but here's a story that Dan Cardamon yesterday said he said he didn't even know. And here's a guy that's been with the league and was intimately involved in Beckham becoming a DP. He was part of that process and the start of the designated player. But the story of him being loaned after he signed with the Galaxy, being loaned to AC Milan, and then playing for Milan, but then publicly saying, man, I really would like to stay. And Tim Lewicki, who was the chief of the Galaxy at that time, his exact words, I'm not going to use it all, but no effing way. And he came back. And I didn't realize this, he had a real adversarial relationship with Landon Donovan when he came back at first. And it was because that he wasn't all in for the Galaxy. He wanted to stay, even after signing the contract, he wanted to stay at Milan. So Danny admitted to me, he said
Landon wrote it in the book. That was like the main feature of Landon Donovan's book.
Okay. I'm saying, but Dan didn't recognize that it was as contentious, I guess, not between him and Donovan necessarily, but between Milan, the club, and trying to get him back and that sort of thing. So that comes out, but that's the stuff you learn in documentaries. You hope you learn things, even if you're directly involved. You hope you learn a few things.
So so I'm going to go see it. But what did Beckham say addressing that moment? If it was in the documentary,
I think he basically, after they have the shot of Lewicki say no effing way, and then they come right back to Beckham, and he said, okay. So it was kind of like that. That was his reaction. Okay, I'm coming back. Yeah, he didn't go like, oh, come on, man. But
that's good. It showed that they loved him.
Well, he won over his teammates eventually, and it's really it's kind of a nice story how he and Donovan eventually came together and then won the MLS Cup. So that worked out pretty well. Yeah,
it did. Absolutely did. What else do we have? Anything else?
I don't really have anything else. I think I hope we could sell at least 1 or 2 copies for Charles and George. So there's the book. It's Pelé in his North American years, a tribute, and it's very cool. It's one you want to have in your, if you're a soccer person.
I got to meet Pelé personally, partly during the time that I was with, covering the team in 1977. And then while I was editor-in-chief of a magazine called Football Mundial back around 15 years ago. And we had an event at NASDAQ, and I think I told you the story yesterday, but I'll tell it to everybody. We had this event at NASDAQ, and he was the featured person at the event. And we brought in like 24 kids, right, to serve as ball boys and, for the whole thing. And when Pelé got there, we set up something for him to sign autographs for the kids. And he was so excited. And instead of just like going, taking, a magazine or whatever and signing his name and saying thank you and whatever. No, he had every kid sit down individually right? One by one, sit down and spoke to them. Hi, what's your name? Where are you going to school? What are you doing? What do you want to do? Do you play soccer? And it was with everybody.
Yeah.
Every single kid he took a personal interest in. It was amazing to see. It was great. I mean, this is the greatest soccer player in history, one of the greatest athletes ever. And he was so humble and so taken aback by kids that he would want just to genuinely find out about them. He cared about that. It was so nice to see.
Well, how about the story that Werner Roth told yesterday at the filming of the movie Victory? You know, a lot of people have seen that. If you haven't, you should. Werner Roth's in it, Pele's in it, Sylvester Stallone is the goalkeeper. But during the filming, just a boatload of kids were just like clamoring around outside of the fence. And at lunchtime, I think this is the way Werner told it, they opened the gates and let them in, and they all sat around, and he had some sort of a dessert. I think it was a sponsor. I can't remember what it was, but he had some sort of I can't remember what it was, but it was some sort of a dessert, and he gave every kid one of these things, and the same kind of thing you just mentioned, Roberto, just was talking to them. And so those are nice memories of Pelé. I would like to just say or promote 2 interviews I have coming up. One of them, I have to hop off soon because I'm recording it in about 15 minutes. But Stern John, I don't know if you remember that name in MLS.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, Columbus Crew.
Yeah, he came in and was he won the Golden Boot. He had 44 goals in 55 games for Columbus. I mean, that's
pretty good.
He had 70 goals. He's the all-time leading scorer for Trinidad. He has 70 goals in 114 matches for Trinidad. Anyway, he's going to be my guest because currently he's the manager, the head coach of the St. Lucia national team, and he's done some remarkable things there. So we're going to talk to him. And then Fred Brion. Later today, I'm going to record an interview with Fred because he has his coaching badge. He's been an assistant at DC United. It'll be interesting to see what's going on right now. Rooney left. He took over, for that exhibition game? He was the manager for one game. They won 2-1. So he's 1-0 as a manager. And but he also has his B license, and he's looking to get more advanced license. So my show, The Coaching Academy, we talk about coaching, but it'll be interesting to see. I'll have to throw Bruce Arena's name at him and see what he thinks. But since that report came out that by The Athletic that Bruce has contacted DC United about coming back. So that'd be cool.
Great if he does. Yeah. That would be great. It really would be. I'd love to see him. Yeah,
me too. All right, Roberto, good stuff, man. Thanks to everyone. Sammy for producing. For Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks on NYCFC Views.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.